Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Gab, and I'm here with my cousin and co-host.
Dylan.
And today we are talking about a movie that I have nominated as one to watch before you die. This is the 1974, Dylan?
Correct, Rooney.
Ooh, 1974, what I would consider a classic piece of cinematic comedy. From the one and only Mel Brooks, starring the one and only Gene Wilder, Young Frankenstein. So, Dylan, you had seen this movie before.
Yes, I believe you have the title wrong, though. It's Young Frankenstein.
Oh, apologies, apologies. Of course,
Quite all right.
Frankenstein. I should have known. But yeah, I believe we've watched this movie together at some point in our lives. I just have like a weird childhood memory of that. But
Okay.
I also want to say before we get into this that you just gave me explicit permission, did you not, to do whatever I want on this episode, correct?
I said as long as we maintain our same segments and I can still edit it coherently, yes, you
Okay.
you were given blanket permission.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm not going to change anything up just yet. We are still going to start with
Oh,
what's it
good.
about? So,
The
Dylan,
threat of looming change.
what? What is it about?
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
Explain!
As you would a child.
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
I don't like change. Young Frankenstein is about. I mean, you ever seen Frankenstein, guy? What if we did
Actually,
that?
no.
God damn it! Well, do you
This is
generally?
my only familiarity with you, Frankenstein.
Is it really?
Yes.
Are you
Other
generally
than,
aware of Frankenstein?
yeah, he's a
Crazy
monster.
scientist reanimates dead tissue to make a living creature.
Yes, I'm familiar with the basics, but
Yeah.
mostly because I've seen Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's just what if we did Frankenstein, but made it funny?
Yeah.
Yeah. This time
Okay.
it's the grandson of the original Frankenstein who is being called back to Transylvania for his grandfather's will. Yada, yada, yada. He's going to find his way into his lab and hijinks will ensue.
Sure. What does IMDb have to say?
An American grandson of the infamous scientist, struggling to prove that his grandfather was not as insane as people believe, is invited to Transylvania where he discovers the process that reanimates a dead body.
Taglines?
They are brief and very simple. Come
Okay.
early, get a seat.
Oh. Is that supposed to be like airplane style, Naked Gun
No, I feel like
style?
this is before they cared about taglines. That's what I feel
Yeah.
like. Because the second one is
Interesting.
the scariest comedy of all time.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much generally how I feel about any and all taglines. Okay. So Dylan, here's where I think the change needs to occur.
Oh, goody.
For this episode,
Mm-hmm.
I want to start with the verdicts.
See, Gab, this is already. I feel like, I feel like you now. Ah, you got me. You got me on the wording. I said all the segments. I didn't say keep them in order, did I?
Exactly, exactly. You did. I said, oh, and then I said, oh, nope, yep. We'll keep all the segments. I just don't want to play this game where we are coy about what we think. So I just want to get it out in the open so we can discuss. But here's the other thing. I want you to go first.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence to death.
Fine, Gab. Whatever you want. Straight to the fucking verdicts we go.
Wait, do you think this is a bad idea?
No, it's fine. It's just a pain in my ass.
Why? You just got to drag and drop, right?
Do I, Gab? Do I? Do you know what I do in Premiere? You have no idea.
No, I really don't. And I hope to never learn. All right, so what's your verdict?
You've seen Annie Hall. You know nothing of my work.
I love that.
Young Frankenstein, I think seeing it as a kid, I already found it very funny. I didn't realize how long it takes to get to the actual monster and all of that. But I think what I appreciated the most this time watching it, now that I've seen Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, a bunch of the Universal Monsters movies, is how much stylistically it tries to keep to that and how much in the editing it tries to remain like that. Even the music, it feels very cute off of that. And I think I just really appreciated that aspect of it more. It's undeniably funny. It's a Mel Brooks movie. It's Gene Wilder. Marty Feldman just can do anything and be funny. So to sum up all the opinions, I'm going to tell you after this, it's obviously great. And obviously, everyone who is in this is doing great, hilarious stuff, and it's obviously a movie to watch before you die. I wouldn't have even suggested this, quite frankly.
Yeah. So I want to start by saying that the reason I suggested it is because Corey and Frank, we were all on FaceTime and these two dickheads both started going, putting on the Ritz. And I chimed in, but I did it as the monster. And I went, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And neither one of them understood. And they looked at me like I was fucking
So
crazy.
wait, I have to ask you then, why in the world would anybody quote putting on the Ritz if not for this, quite frankly?
Thank you. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked to my core. I thought that was really the only relevance, but apparently some people just know that song.
Like, I like the
So,
80s version by Taco as much as the next guy, also mostly because it's by a guy named Taco, but
sure.
not enough that like I would just be doing that on its own.
Right,
Yeah.
right. They had never seen it. So I was like, well, fuck, we're doing it. So we sat down on Sunday and we put this movie on. And I actually said to Corey before it started, you are going to fucking love this. We're talking about a man who has a tattoo of Nosferatu and a tattoo of Edgar Allan Poe. I was like, this is going to be right up your alley. And it's a comedy, and it's Gene Wilder, and it's Mel Brooks. And I'm like, have you ever seen Spaceballs? Have you ever seen any other Mel Brooks movie? And I'm like, ba 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 ba. And then the movie started, and I was like, uh-oh. We're moving slow. We're moving slow. What is happening? When is it going to get good? And time goes on and time goes on and time goes on. And joke after joke after joke, I was just like, oh no, this is significantly less funny than I remember. And going on and it's going. And there are moments where I'm like, and like it's not hitting and it's not hitting. And they do putting on the Ritz, and I'm like, that was fun, right? Putting on the Ritz. And I really appreciate this film for what it does. I love Mel Brooks. I love Gene Wilder. Listen, I'm a
Oh
Jew just like
no.
you. But Dylan, I didn't think it was funny. I was so upset. I almost feel like I wish I hadn't watched it because I don't know what happened. I was in the mood for a comedy. I was hyped about it. I was like, I love this movie. Broadway musical, so good. Megan Mullally as Elizabeth, like hilarious. This just didn't do it for me. And honestly, the reason I wanted to do the verdicts in the beginning is because I feel so guilty about it and it's been haunting me and I'm very upset, but I did not enjoy it as much as I remembered enjoying it in a previous life. What happened? What do you think is wrong with me?
Well, for that, I think we should hop straight into our opinions.
Wow, chef's
Oh, I
kiss.
fucking nailed that. But okay.
Nailed it.
In this critic's opinion,
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
Gab, I think what's wrong with you is one, I imagine the first time you saw it, you're a little kid. You're not weighed down by the burden, the expectations. The first you have this expectation of in your mind, you built it up to be the funniest thing you've ever seen.
Correct.
Second, you've seen so many movies that I'm sure have taken things from this, taken
Mm.
inspiration from this, that you've
Of course.
seen jokes now 100,000 times. It's hard to hit the same. Third,
Yeah.
I don't think that this is that slow a movie. I think it's just that if you mostly watch movies that are just from, 2025, the pacing of films is so different now.
For
Like,
sure.
I certainly don't think for the time it's a slow paced movie. You know what I
No,
mean?
and I do think it's important to acknowledge. Sometimes I think when we think of Mel Brooks, we think of the 80s, right? And like movies in the 80s were much faster than they were in the 70s. So even that brief time period between them is going to be, you feel it.
I also feel ironically like I don't think it's slow, but I think it does feel purposefully a bit like your 1930s version of Frankenstein, which is
Totally.
much slower, I'll tell you, but is very similar in a lot of ways. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like this really takes this and Bride of Frankenstein and mixes them together for a lot of it.
Yeah.
In fact, everything with the inspector, who I can't remember the inspector's character's name, but with his fake arm, that's really never addressed in this movie as why he has a fake arm,
Yeah.
is really taken from, I think it's Bride of Frankenstein. It might be another Frankenstein sequel because I know back then they did like every 2 years we'll put out another Frankenstein movie.
Hmm.
There is an inspector who has a wooden arm because he was attacked by the original Frankenstein monster and lost the arm.
Interesting.
And they have a dart scene in that movie that is all about like the darts are a metaphor for who's winning the conversation type of thing. Whereas in this one, it's
Uh-huh.
just a joke of who like him cheating in darts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I suppose that would be helpful. Certainly, there's definitely things that went over my head because I'm not super familiar with that Frankenstein, like the original movies or whatnot. But I just remember, like, for example, roll in the hay.
Hmm.
Not funny. Remember it being hilarious. Didn't hit. How about look at those knockers? Not funny. Remember it being a hit. Have said that a million times. One thing that did make me laugh, though, that I don't think I ever noticed the first time I watched it, was when he goes, the inspector says, a riot is a terrible thing, but it's about time we had one. That made me laugh.
I just feel like it's not that it's not funny. I think it is funny. I think it's that it's been funny to you for so long. It's not going to hit the same way as it did when you were 8 years old, 10 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Much in the way
I
that for a child, bubbles are the most magnificent thing they've ever seen. For you, bubbles are just fucking bubbles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. 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 I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I just feel like Mel Brooks, I think, and perhaps I'm conflating, but I thought that Mel Brooks was going to feel very similar to the way that like The Naked Gun felt. And I can't think of his name. What is his name?
Zucker or Leslie Nielsen?
Zucker. Thank you. I thought it was going to be no, Zucker. I thought it was going to be a little bit more David Zucker. I thought it was going to be a little bit more like farcical and nonsensical because surely Spaceballs is
Spaceballs is more
sillier than this.
directly like that, more directly full on spoof. This is parody without being full on spoof.
Yeah. 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 Um, and maybe I think I'm conflating the musical with it too because the musical is much sillier and much funnier. Have you ever seen it?
I'm not. I honestly, in doing my research for the movie, I feel like I heard a lot of mixed things about the musical.
Yeah, it wasn't like super well received, but I think because see, this is the thing. I feel like I'm 10 degrees separated from Young Frankenstein because watching the musical, I was like, "Oh, but I love this movie and it's so silly and I see what they're doing the movie and it's so fun, ha ha ha." And like it just I don't know, going back to the original source, I was like, "Oh no." Also, I want to talk a little bit about Gene Wilder. God rest his soul, right? He's dead.
Yeah, he is.
Is Mel Brooks dead?
No,
Wow.
alive and
Did
kicking.
Gene Wilder have a drug problem?
No, he was friends with
What?
Richard Pryor, who had a terrible drug problem.
Sure. Side note, the toy, hilarious Richard Pryor movie.
Mel Brooks, 98 years old, by the way.
Wow. Part of the tribe, no doubt.
Surely, yes.
Okay, great. Good. Happy he's still around. So, okay, Gene Wilder. Obviously, when you think of Gene Wilder, what movie predominantly comes to your mind?
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Correct. He is a marvelous Willy Wonka,
Mhm.
equal parts charming and petrifying, right? Really walks the line of like what's happening with this dude. Interesting though that in this role, I felt a little bit like there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of nuance.
I don't know. Is there supposed to be a lot of nuance? Like, I don't think so, but I think he is doing it to a T. Like, when he's doing Give My Creation Life, I'm really feeling him evoke that original performance from like the James Whale version of Frankenstein.
Sure, yes, definitely. And what an iconic yell. You know, he's just got a great yell.
Yeah.
Great.
You know who I do want to talk about also? Who I think was still just as funny to me now as the first time I saw it. Because a lot of it, you're right, it's not as funny to me now, but because I know it so well.
Yeah.
Marty Feldman as Igor is phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely
The
phenomenal.
joke about the wasn't your hump on the other side didn't hit for me. I was just, and maybe it's because I knew it was coming, but I just feel like we've watched so many movies that I know so intimately. And I was like, why isn't this funny? And then the pressure of looking at Corey, like, ha ha ha, right, right. And he's kind of like not laughing. I'm like, oh God.
I just think he just had a way of saying things and timing things that made it fun to me. Like when you hear the wolf howling, which by the way is totally Mel Brooks doing the wolf howl.
Mm,
And I think it's, Inga and Victor are both going, werewolf, werewolf. And then you get Marty Feldman's delivery of their wolf, their castle. Like, he just delivered
yeah,
everything in like perfect comedic way.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Elizabeth, the scene in the beginning where he's leaving and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you, but please don't touch my where I have lipstick on." And like, "Oh, this dress is taffeta.
Can't
Don't
shake
touch."
hands, don't touch my nails.
Yep. So funny. Great scene. There is a song in the Young Frankenstein musical that Megan Mullally, who plays that role,
Mhm.
sings called Please Don't Touch Me. And it is so good.
I
10
do
out of
love
10.
that scene's build up to just their eventual elbow rubbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite jokes in the movie, which involves both of them, it's when she first arrives at the castle and when she says, how do she's being introduced to Inga and Igor and goes, how do you do? Looks at Igor, looks away, how do you do? Back to Inga again. And what is it exactly? Frankenstein says, can you help me with the bags? And again, it's Marty Feldman's delivery of, sure, you take the blonde and I'll take the one in the turban. Right, right, right.
Yes.
Like, that
So
one
that
still
is
made me laugh
very
out
funny.
loud.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
if there's a
I'll
movie
give
that
you
I've
that.
watched for 20 years that I've seen more than 20 times, if it's still getting me to laugh out loud on the 20th watch, that's pretty fucking good.
I know. I know. I just don't understand why it didn't happen for me.
Do you not laugh? Okay, let me ask you if you laughed at this because it's still one of the things that like I remember enjoying the moment even as a little kid. Whose brain did I put in? Abby something.
Yes.
Abby
Yes.
normal. Are you telling
Yes.
me I put an abnormal brain in a 7.5 foot tall, 54-inch wide gorilla? Like the way he throttles him. It's great.
Yes. Yes, that did make me laugh. I'll give you that. I also learned, and I'm sure this is ruining your fact segment, but I learned that Gene Wilder really tap danced.
I wouldn't have had that in the facts, so you're fine there. I think he
Oh
also
my
actually
God.
stabbed himself in the leg with the scalpel. I think he
Yikes.
missed the pad he was supposed to hit. I'm not. I don't remember if I have that in my facts, but
Oh God.
I also love
Uh
this time the charades. When he's being
yes.
choked
Yeah, yeah,
about the
yeah.
sedative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. That is very funny. I don't know, like it's like funny, but not like laugh out loud funny. I don't know, Dylan. Maybe should we start this episode from the beginning? I'm just kidding.
Can we start again?
Yeah.
I appreciate what I appreciate about this movie is the original movie in scenes where it's just the creature gives you empathy for the creature. For this movie, the entire time, obviously sometimes there's some funny moments, but everyone usually has empathy for the creature in like a much nicer way. You know what I mean? Like in the original book and the original movie, once Frankenstein creates the monster, he kind of doesn't really care. He's just like, I did it. I created life. All right, fuck you.
Mm.
In this movie, he really wants to see like the best for his little creation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I love the moment towards the end when he's like, "This is a good boy." You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
He's so sweet with
Yeah.
that giant lumbering monster.
I really like the scene where the monster goes to the blind man's house,
I absolutely love
and
that scene.
I do again, I remember that scene being throw up because you're laughing so hard funny, and it definitely isn't, but it's so good when he like spills the soup on him and then spills the whatever and like ha ha ha. I just wish that I could watch it again for the first time.
That's totally fair. You know what part of that scene lives in my head rent free the same way that the line reading "explain it as you would a child" lives in my head?
What?
The delivery of the blind man holding them up and going cigars. it's,
Oh,
it's the way he goes cigars has just always stayed with me.
why is the monster afraid of fire?
Well, that's obviously from the original, and obviously they kill the monster with fire eventually.
Oh.
Yeah,
Is
fire
that
is
where
scary.
Kill It With Fire comes in?
Yeah. Um, I do love that the blind man almost convinces him not to be afraid of fire until he directly lights his thumb on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody we haven't discussed yet, Peter Boyle.
Peter Boyle, who does a really good job. He doesn't get to talk, and he delivers so much with just his eyes. Like he
Hmm.
has moments where he is able to look so innocent just with the looks. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a very impressive piece of acting when you take away the fact that he doesn't get to say a word until he's singing Gary Cooper and Super Duper.
Yeah. Yes. And I really appreciated. So what I read when I Googled is Gene Wilder actually tap dancing and found out yes, is that he and Mel Brooks had a little bit of like beef regarding whether or not the tap dancing was necessary. Mel Brooks felt as though it was like completely not necessary, and Gene Wilder insisted that it happened, so they finally let him do it. And Peter Boyle kind of doing the movements but very poorly in like those very thick-soled shoes,
Mhm.
I thought was also really impressive.
I think he is very much acting when he is doing the dancing. Like, I'm sure Peter Boyle at his best could probably have done a better job, but I think he is supposed to be acting as this creature kind of new to
Right.
motor function. Yeah.
That's what I
Um,
mean.
I'll also say about that scene, which I don't know if this is one of the facts I had or not, but yes, that is the most disputed scene during the writing. Gene Wilder was the primary writer on this. Mel Brooks obviously assisted, and Mel Brooks thought that that was, you've gone too far into farce. This is going to be over the top ridiculous. You've built up something that is, while funny, somewhat real. And it really just did not turn out that way. Obviously, audiences had a great time with it, but Gene Wilder was turning red in the face, he said, as he was arguing for it. And eventually, Mel Brooks was just like, fine, it's in the movie. And he was like, well, so why'd you have me fight with you like that? And he went, well, I wanted to get rid of it. If you didn't fight for it, I'd let it go. If you fought for it, we keep it in.
Huh.
I think Mel Brooks seems like a really interesting director who wouldn't say directly to you what you meant, like what he meant, but would try and always have the best person's interests at heart.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is probably the most memorable scene in the whole film.
I also can never hear that song without thinking of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, unequivocally. I think that what this movie does really well is give you jokes that are hidden in the fabric of this very stylized piece. My qualm with it was that it did not do what I thought it was going to do, and I had built it up so much in my head. And so I'm deeply disappointed in myself. But the more that I think we talk it through, if my expectations had been a bit more managed, it would have been a delightful watch. It was slow in the beginning for sure.
Yeah, there's a good amount more buildup than I remember, and there are some background jokes that are funny too. Like after 5 p.m., put brains through slot. You know what I mean, in the
Yeah,
door.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I do think that it has a lot of time where it's building up, but I still think it's never dull to watch, and I think it still feels by the end like it went pretty quickly to me.
Yeah. The ending, I think there's just a lot of exposition. And the first scene of him teaching when you find out that he goes by
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein,
Frederick
blah blah blah.
Frankenstein.
Frodrick, yeah. Did you
Why
say
isn't it Froderick?
Frederick? Yeah. I am still stuck on this Gene Wilder thing. Like he just is such an interesting you know what it reminds me of? Remember when we talked about Saw and I said, "Hey, I have a question. Has Cary Elwes always been a bad actor?" Like I'm seeing him now in this new light and I'm like, "Wait a second."
Wait, did you think
And
Gene Wilder was bad?
no, that's not what I'm
Okay.
saying. I'm just saying that it felt like, oh, does Gene Wilder just always do this thing where he's so essentially what I'm saying is that in Willy Wonka, we see two very different he has those moments where he's like this beautiful, almost like father figure to Charlie, right? And then in the next breath he becomes this like insane, like reclusive, angry lunatic. And in Young Frankenstein, we sort of just see him be Frederick Frankenstein, right? He's just like the guy the whole time. And so my question is Gene Wilder kind of always just doing an iteration of Gene Wilder and we just love it as a society? Or is he actually a really good actor and this role just didn't really require all that much?
I think this role requires less as a much broader comedy than Willy Wonka is, certainly. But I do think the irony of what you're saying is you were saying he has these scenes as a delicate father figure and these scenes where he's just stark raving mad. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, he sort of is doing
Yeah.
that in this movie too. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
scene I'm talking about where he's talking about this is a good boy versus
Yeah.
with those moments of creation versus,
Stabbing himself in the leg.
stabbing himself in the leg. I do think he does a lot here. I don't think there's ever a Gene Wilder role where you can't even tell that who is that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He never disappears from Gene Wilder, but I
Yeah.
think that he does a good job of it. And it feels like, it doesn't just feel like Gene Wilder, it feels like Victor Frankenstein. That's how I feel.
Sure. Sure. Okay, I feel satisfied with this conversation.
Okay. Do you want me to get to the facts?
I do want to get to the facts.
I want the truth! Face the facts, dukes.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
On the Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter, it has a 95% with 69 fresh reviews and 4 rotten. Audience score of 92% with an average score of 4.4 out of 5. On IMDb, it has an 8 out of 10. It had a budget of $2.8 million and it grossed $86 million, which I don't think that 2.8 is 100% accurate because I feel like I heard a lot of 2.3 and that they struggled to get that from, can't remember who the initial studio they worked with was, Paramount. The critics' consensus, made with obvious affection for the original, Young Frankenstein is a riotously silly spoof featuring a fantastic performance by Gene Wilder. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars, and he said it shows artistic growth and a more sure-handed control of the material by a director who once seemed willing to do literally anything for a laugh. It's more confident and less breathless. Don Drucker, Frau Brucher, Don Drucker.
But we didn't talk about Frau Brucker.
Frau Brucher from the Chicago Reader. More about the myth of Karloff than the monster, this Mel Brooks pastiche is probably his best early film. John H. Doerr from the Hollywood Reporter. It is good-natured, lowbrow, backlot, hit-or-miss humor, but with no cumulative effect beyond a succession of hard work jokes. And lastly, Alex Sandell from, as Frankenstein would appreciate, Juicy Cerebellum. Never struck me as funny, but it's well put together. Couple of Letterboxd reviews. Amaya said, this movie is the best Frankenstein adaptation because they explicitly state how massive the creature's dick is like 4 times. Roberto, actually, it's young Frankenstein. Jaxie, I for one am disappointed we didn't get to see the monster's magnum dong. And Mario, if you think Mel Brooks is wild, just wait till you've seen Gene Wilder.
Oh my God.
I had to.
Yikes.
The movie was directed by Mel Brooks, who also directed Blazing Saddles, History of the World Part 1, Spaceballs, The Producers, and Robin Hood Men in Tights. The screenplay is...
Have you ever seen The Producers?
I don't think I have. I've seen like Springtime for Hitler, like that scene.
Yeah, of course. By the way, the other day I posted an Instagram story about my window being open and how my allergies are really bad because of it. And I wanted to use the song Springtime for Hitler on the video. And I was like, so many people will not appreciate this or understand. And I'm going to look really bad.
I was going to say, in today's media literacy world, I feel like there's a lot of people who would take it the wrong way.
Exactly.
The screenplay was written by Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder, who also wrote Get Smart, The Producers, and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. Which I know nothing of, but I appreciated the title.
Yeah, never heard it.
Stars Gene Wilder as Dr. Frederick Frankenstein, who you may know from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, The Producers, and The World's Greatest Lover. Peter Boyle as the monster, who you may know from Taxi Driver. Johnny Dangerously as Jocko Dundee. And of course, Everybody Loves Raymond. Marty Feldman as Igor, you may know from The Man Who Came to Dinner and Marty. Madeline Kahn as Elizabeth, you may know from Clue as Mrs. White, or from Blazing Saddles as Lily von Stupp. Cloris Leachman as Frau Brucher, who you may know from Malcolm in the Middle, Raising Hope, and Beer Fest. Also Mary Tyler Moore Show and Phyllis, and Terry Garr as Inga, who you may know from Tootsie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but some of our listeners, the yappy ones, may know her as Harry McGinnis's mom from Batman Beyond, Mary.
We didn't really get to talk about Cloris Leachman, but can I just say, on Raising Hope, how fucking good was she all the way through to the end?
Cloris Leachman is a goddamn icon. If you haven't seen Malcolm in the Middle or Raising Hope, you should watch just for her episodes in those shows.
Oh, God. She literally, I think she was doing Raising Hope until like a year before she died, right? And she was
she's much older by the time she's doing Raising Hope.
Oh, my God. But she was like sharp as a fucking tack. Just so good. Oh, my God. What an icon. I was like, oh, my God, Cloris Leachman is like not young in Young Frankenstein.
I think she is. I think she's just made up to appear older, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, they got me.
Last person, a cameo from Gene Hackman as the blind man, who you may remember from movies like Unforgiven or The Replacements and a million more.
And who recently had a bit of an incident.
I'm going to skip past that description. My God. Recently deceased Gene Hackman, who had an incident. My God.
Of an incident.
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
The movie is nominated for an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound, with Golden Globe nominations for Cloris Leachman and Madeline Kahn. Some fun facts?
Please.
When Mel Brooks was preparing for the movie, he discovered that Ken Strickfaden, who had made the elaborate electrical machinery for the lab sequences in the original Frankenstein in 1931 and its sequels, was still alive and living in the Los Angeles area. Brooks visited Strickfaden and found that he had stored all the equipment from the original movie in his garage. Brooks made a deal to rent the equipment and gave Strickfaden the screen credit he did not receive for the original Frankenstein films.
I noticed that in the first scene that they have his credit.
That is so, can you imagine, what's in your garage? Lawnmower? What's in your garage? Oh, the equipment for the original 1931 Frankenstein movie. I'd be like, excuse me?
Wild.
Why are we not hanging out in your garage?
Yeah.
Gene Hackman learned about the film through his frequent tennis partner, Gene Wilder, and he requested any role, because he wanted to try doing some comedy and working with Mel Brooks. He volunteered to play the blind hermit for free. It was supposed to be for one day, but it turned into 10 days of shooting for about 4 minutes of screen time. Gene Hackman ad-libbed the blind man's last line, "I was going to make espresso." The scene immediately fades to black because the crew erupted into fits of laughter. Hackman was unable to repeat the line without laughing with the rest of the crew, so the first take is used. Hackman went uncredited when the movie was originally released in theaters.
Wow. It is one of the best scenes. I mean, definitely not as good as Putting on the Ritz, but it's close.
I think watching behind the scenes for this movie and interviews, the thing that comes off the most is how much fun they had making the movie. They were we had to do 15 takes because people kept laughing while we were trying to make the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Gene Wilder was one of the worst, constantly cracking up during takes. According to Cloris Leachman, he killed every take with his laughter and nothing was done about it, which he directed at Mel Brooks, which he said it.
Oh, that's funny.
Shots would frequently have to be repeated as many as 15 to 20 times before Wilder could finally summon a straight face. In a deleted scene, the monster has a bar mitzvah and is referred to as young Frankenstein. I saw that on IMDb trivia. I could not confirm the deleted scene, but I hope it's real.
Oh, I pray.
Last one I've got. In 1974, Aerosmith took a break from a long night of recording. They went to see Young Frankenstein. Steven Tyler wrote the band's hit Walk This Way the next morning, inspired by Marty Feldman's first scene.
No, that's not real.
He got the title from the movie.
Wow. Does he say walk this way? Oh, yeah, he does. With
He
the
told
little
me
cane.
to walk this way. And of course, yes, walk this way. And then he shows him how to do it with the little cane. And has Gene Wilder do it.
Oh, my God.
That's also
actually incredible.
Mel Brooks, I feel like it cracked me up. He kept saying about Marty Feldman. He went, if you ever want to hide from Marty Feldman, press your nose right up against his. He'll never see you coming.
Is he really cross-eyed?
Yes, that's actually I know that I looked it up because I figured you might ask me about this. He suffered from thyroid disease and developed Graves' ophthalmology, causing his eyes to protrude and become misaligned. He then also had a childhood injury, a car crash, a boating accident, and reconstructive eye surgery, which also contributed to his appearance. He later described his appearance as a factor in his career success. If I aspired to be Robert Redford, I'd have my eyes straightened and my nose fixed and end up like every other lousy actor with 2 lines in Kojak. But this way, I'm a novelty.
I mean, and goddamn it, is he correct?
And he takes such, he uses it for every bit that he can and makes it so goddamn funny. He is, I after watching this, I was like, I should watch more stuff with him in it.
Yeah.
I also saw somebody refer to him as the British version of Woody Allen, where he was this great, nothing to do with marrying his daughter or anything like that, where he was this great comic writer who just turned out to do a lot of comedic acting as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's all the facts that I've got. So do you want to get to some mail?
Let's do the mail.
Mail time! When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
Okay, I'll start with an email from our Canadian correspondent, Kyle.
Hello, Kyle.
Hey, friends. Thank you for having me back on the podcast. I know I'm your favorite Canadian, but I was curious, who was your favorite Canadian actor? And was it one project in particular that made them your favorite actor? Thanks, Kyle. And he spelled favorite both times with a U.
Of course he did. So Canadian.
Yeah.
This is hard because I feel like now being put on the spot, all of the Canadians that I know, I'm like I can't think of many. Obviously, one comes to mind in particular.
Who?
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey is the first one that came to my mind as well. Yeah.
Yeah. couple of other Canadians I can think of off the top of my head. Alex Trebek, famously dead.
Yeah. Who is famously dead?
Correct.
Yes.
Celine Dion, famously not doing so hot.
Seth Rogen. I like him
Canadian?
a lot.
He's Canadian? I don't like him more than Jim Carrey.
Ryan Gosling.
Oh, I like him more than Jim Carrey.
All right, take it easy there. Pick up your jaw.
Damn, who else is Canadian?
John Candy.
Oh, yeah, I like John Candy. Let me ask you a question. I knew a kid once. He had to be in his early 20s. He was a member at a gym where I coached, and he looked so much like John Candy. He just looked like him so much. And one day I was like, I gotta tell him. I gotta say it. And I told him, and I think he was a little offended. Is that rude?
I could see it being a little offensive.
Oh, God, but he was so jolly like him, you know? Anyway.
I guess. Other Canadian people I've just looked up. Will Arnett.
Love him.
Keanu
He might be my
Reeves.
favorite. Oh, no, not for me.
Martin Short. Everybody likes Martin Short.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Gotta love Martin Short.
Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
Phil Hartman.
Famously dead.
Famously murdered.
Famously murdered, yeah.
Yeah. As you can hear in our Jingle All the Way episode.
Yeah.
Not audio of him being murdered, but we talk about it.
Yeah, but if we can get our hands on the audio, we'll put it in post.
I won't feel good about it, but sure. Yeah. And there's a lot of others, but yeah, I would say I listed out the ones that I like the most.
I would say my top 3 would be Jim Carrey, Ryan Gosling, and Will Arnett.
I would say the same, but
John Candy, honorable mention.
I think I'm swapping in Seth Rogen.
I don't really care for Seth Rogen all that
You should
much.
watch The Studio on Apple TV. It is so good.
I know.
So
and I
good.
finally pay for Apple TV.
It's so good. I was paying for Apple TV for that.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We've also got some comments here. On most quotable line, a couple of people wanted to just comment their most quotable lines for Galaxy Quest: "Never give up, never surrender." I was an actor, damn it. 7 curtain calls, now look at me. And Scotty Cameron said, "Every time I see Gilligan's Island on TV, I say, those poor people, just like the Thurvians." I will always say that in reaction to Gilligan's Island until the day I die.
That's great.
That was, of course, before we got Scotty Cameron's YouTube novella, when you do a Star Trek parody without your Star Trek aficionado jokes aside the verdicts of this film, to support my long-held belief that this film is a lot funnier if you've actually seen Star Trek. So, Scotty said, Gab.
Oh, wait, that wasn't the comment?
Oh, no, that was the beginning of the comment. Gab, never seen Star Trek, and most of her knowledge of Star Trek comes from me. Verdict, plain no. Dylan, never seen Star Trek, but has some knowledge of it through Mike from Red Letter Media and myself. Verdict, soft yes. Kyle has seen Star Trek, but probably not a big Trekkie. Verdict, plain yes. Scotty is a Trekkie who inundated himself with Star Trek. Verdict, hard yes. The funny thing about this film is that it pokes fun at all the eras of Star Trek. Obviously, the characters they play are parodies of the original Star Trek cast. Jason Nesmith, a parody of Shatner. Alexander Dane, a parody of Leonard Nimoy. I turned it fucking SpongeBob there. I mean, Dane's whole distaste for Dr. Lazarus in the beginning sort of parodies Nimoy when he wrote his first autobiography, I Am Not Spock. And by the end, Dane has his own version of Reaching, where Nimoy was at the time he wrote his second autobiography, I Am Spock, which make up your damn mind, Nimoy. But Guy is a parody of every red shirt from the original series who isn't Scotty or Uhura. The old Star Trek joke, the red shirts always die, which is funny because that was only a thing in the original series, because red is what engineers wore in that show. Each show changed which shirts were for the bridge, med bay, and the engine room. It was always the engineers who die. So in the next generation, the yellow shirts died unless they were Geordi or Data. There's also plenty of Next Generation jokes in here, like how the Galaxy Quest show aired in the 80s, which is when Next Generation aired. And the Dr. Lazarus costume is a parody of Worf from the Next Generation. 7 to 9 is from Star Trek Voyager. Scott Bakula, Donald Stevens from Source Code, was in Star Trek Enterprise, not Voyager. Stay yappy, Scotty. And last comment we have here is from Cal Norman 89. It's too bad Alan Rickman passed away before they could make the Galaxy Quest sequel show, which they did talk about doing. And you know what? I think it could have been interesting if they did do something like that.
Sure.
Gab, you've had so much to say during this mail segment. Anything else before we get back to the verdicts for Young Frankenstein?
Oh, that's it? No, please. To the verdicts we go.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
But we already did.
Nope,
Now
I'm
you're
not
affecting
done.
my acting, Gab. What does that
I'm
mean?
not done.
Oh my God, you're not done. Well, I still think it's a movie to watch before you die.
I never said one way or the other.
Oh, you schmuck. You schmucky putz, you.
I didn't say, so now I get to say, listener, I admit, when I watched this movie on a Sunday afternoon, I was disappointed in how it did not live up to my expectation of how hilariously funny I recall it being. However, I still think that in a world where comedy after comedy is put out on Netflix and spoof after remake after reboot is plastered on the internet, if you haven't seen Young Frankenstein, you should be dead. I'm doing my best. So therefore, even though it may not give you the side-splitting, ill feeling, I think I might shit my pants laughter that you may be chasing, it is still undoubtedly a movie to watch before you die.
It's also easily appreciated when you think about.
That's your reaction to me flip. I had this master plan.
This
That's
master
the
plan.
reaction?
Yeah, Gav, when you go back, I need to do verdicts a second time. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have been surprised either way by this point, Gav. You blew your surprise load at the beginning by doing verdicts earlier.
No, but then I gave you
the flip-a-flop. No.
Someone out there is shocked. Listen, listener, if you're surprised, write in, comment, let us know, because I felt like that was brilliant.
Send a letter to P.O. Box. Fuck you.
I can't believe you're not going to be like, wow, Gab, that was really creative and brilliant of you to start out by like leading the witness and then being like, no, but alas.
Wow, Gab, way to fuck my shit. I'm going to be like, do I put the verdicts down in here again or no? I don't know.
No, play it twice.
You know what? If I had to sum this movie up in 2 words, you know what I would call it?
A rip-roaring good time.
First of all, that's more than 2 words. Second of all, super duper.
Yeah.
I tried to set you up for the spike and you missed it.
Well, I was still reeling at how you have no appreciation for art. This is definitely a period piece, and it is definitely something that without this movie being made, I don't think modern cinema would be the same.
Even earlier, like we were talking about The Naked Gun, obviously a couple weeks ago, obviously earlier in this episode, we mentioned it. The Zuckers, I don't think, get to where they are without this movie.
Yeah.
You don't get Deadpool and Wolverine without this movie.
Yeah, and you know what? The world would be a worse place without Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, let me ask you this. Do we get Sinners without this movie?
Probably.
Maybe not, though, because the Jews led the way for the other minorities to make film. You know?
I guess. I feel like if you weren't positive, like if you were saying that in a negative way, you would come off as a conspiracy theorist, I guess. I don't know what to say about that.
Sure. Now, I do want to address the fact that you haven't seen The Producers, and I think that it would be imperative for us to do that. And funny enough, we do have a musical episode coming up with a very special guest, so maybe we can talk to him about changing his mind on what musical he wants to do and doing The Producers instead.
Well, I'll see if I can nudge him in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, listen, I took a chance. I wanted to be a little risky on this episode. I'm sorry it didn't pay off.
I feel like the least risky thing you could do is pick Young Frankenstein and it ends up being the movie to watch before you die.
Yeah, but I wanted to be like, oh, it wasn't that good. It wasn't as good as I remembered. And then be like, yeah, well, you know.
I just thought
it doesn't
you were
mean
dumb.
It's not great.
I just blamed you for that. Yeah.
No, but it truly, like, I really was shocked at the pace and the vibe and like how the jokes were sort of like offhand and not as direct. Like I remembered it being spoofier, but obviously like it's a phenomenal, like it's a great movie. I just was I think I expected it to feel a little bit more like The Naked Gun did.
Yeah, which it's definitely not the same type of comedy as The Naked Gun.
Yeah, but Mel Brooks generally is, as we know him
He can be,
now.
certain. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway. Yeah, listen. I think the biggest takeaway from this is that can you imagine two fucking people walking around this earth singing Putting on the Ritz that don't understand Young Frankenstein, had not seen Young Frankenstein?
Yeah, what is wrong with Frank and Corey? What did Corey think of it?
Corey.
I need
Please
Corey's verdict. Yeah.
Yeah. Please hold. He's making oatmeal.
Insert drum roll, creating more editing for myself.
Yeah.
I'll just say drum roll. Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll.
It's very important that you come here with some urgency, please.
Tell him to hop off the crapper and get over here.
Okay. I'm gonna give you this. And Dylan would like to know your verdict for Young Frankenstein.
If it pleases the court, I'm gonna say, hey, what's up?
Howdy.
What's up, America and everywhere else in the world? The movie Young Frankenstein I wasn't in the mood to watch a movie when we watched it, but we watched it and I felt like I needed to see this movie because there's so many references in pop culture and cinema. And I love Gene Wilder. But there's so many references that make way more sense to me now and I appreciate a lot more. I mean, like they've done this shit on Family Guy, like it's come up so much and it's like I know where it's from, but I've never actually seen the movie and I've read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So did I enjoy the movie when I watched it? I fell asleep for like 15 minutes in the middle of it, but that's because I fall asleep sometimes.
Well, we all fall asleep sometimes, Corey. We're human beings, but okay.
But I think it's a movie to watch before you die because it's just been referred to so many times that you have to see it.
Now, when somebody sings Putting on the Ritz, what are you going to respond with?
I remember that scene in the movie when they sang the song.
The right answer is Dylan. Dylan, what's the right answer?
Oh, I'm gonna be so mad when it turns out that like Zoom has for audio cleanup just gotten rid of the audio each time we've gone hard on that.
Can we do that anymore? Make that sound?
He's a monster.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god. I feel like what's more messed up is you asking if we can do this.
Can we do that anymore?
Well, Dylan, if you recall, we once wanted to do accents on this podcast and we were told we weren't allowed.
Yes.
Even though some of us are black.
I do. You, not you, Gav.
I'm Jewish. It's the same thing.
I think if we're being accurate, not hateful.
Yeah. So the accuracy is.
That sounded like Sal Volcano's little excited voice. I don't think it's politically incorrect to do monster voices. I think we're okay with that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so listen, let me summarize with this. When we put on Airplane at 6 o'clock, no, I'm sorry, not Airplane, The Naked Gun at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, I thought to myself, I'm sorry, it was a Wednesday. We put it on a Wednesday, and I thought to myself, this movie is like dumb boy humor, and I really don't fucking feel like watching this right now because it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. And it was a fucking slap fest. It just hit and hit and hit, and we were laughing. It was so good. And then Young Frankenstein, I was like, oh my god, this movie is going to be just as good. And it fell short of my expectations. However, still a phenomenal movie. Put it in the books. It's a movie to watch before you die. And anybody who shut this podcast off before I got to say that, go fuck yourself.
They won't have heard it anyway, but okay.
Listen, we don't ever have to go out of order of the segments again. I think we have something that works. And we don't need to do it again and differently.
Thank you. That's very helpful to me now.
You're welcome. Okay. So listen, if you're still here, leave us a comment or a voice note or an email at movies2watchbeforeyoudie@gmail.com. You can do the voice note thing via email, or you can send it to anchor.fm/movies to watch.
Anchor's not real anymore, Gab. I told you that.
Listen, it's part of my
You
it's part of
bungled
my
this whole
spiel.
thing, Gab.
It's fine. Listen, here's some other things you can
Pilfered
do.
fizzy lifting juice. You get nothing. You
can-
lose.
Oh, good day, sir. You can wait, what was the first line of that?
I said good day. You pilfered fizzy lifting juice.
Oh, yes. Yes. You know what's funny? We're on a podcast. I had like this I get like a lot of gas pain sometimes from training really hard and kind of
Oh
like
my
gasping
God.
for air.
Okay.
And today I like was trying to make myself burp, but of course I was thinking burp, Charlie burp, which is classic.
Does Corey call you out if you burp or fart the way you called me out mid-episode, mind you, when I had to fart?
Well, no, but that's because I'm not I'm not obvious like you.
No one would have known. No one would have known. And now I brought it up
Listen,
again. Look what you've made me
You're
do.
bringing it up, exactly. Listen, buy a t-shirt from our store, send me a Venmo. Like, listen, just subscribe to the podcast, leave a comment, ask a question. Just shut the fuck up, all right? I gotta go.
We're going to shut the fuck up too. Bye.
Frankenstein.
You're putting me on.
No, it's pronounced Frankenstein.
Do you also say Froderick?
No, Frederick.
Well, why isn't it Froderick Frankenstein?
It isn't. It's Frederick Frankenstein.
I see.
You must be Igor.
No, it's pronounced Igor.
But they told me it was Igor.
Well, they were wrong then, weren't they?